Welcome, everyone, to the 23rd episode all-time of the 792 Florida Sports Podcast, and I'm glad to be back after a long hiatus. I'm Hunter Williams, joined by Alan Zlotorzynski from Brevard Sports Network.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Good to be here with you and talking some high school football. At least finally there's a light at the end of the tunnel that's coming, that's not a freight train for once.
Oh, yeah. Like, this whole offseason, it's just been completely different. But I guess we really started this back in March. Like, it really became offseason back then. And really everything went to hell real fast. But hopefully we're going to at least talk football today. And hopefully we can we'll be able to see some of these teams in action within the next few months. And I guess with that, we'll go right on into 8A, starting with North Florida. The 8A teams that I looked at in North Florida, there's a couple of good ones, obviously, mostly Northeast teams, because that's really where the start of the 8A teams are, because you have to go all the way from Pensacola all the way out. You don't get to any 8A teams until you hit Clay County. Like, every single one from west of Clay County is 7A or under. So we'll start, I guess, with Clay County. The one team that I keep hearing about out of that area is Oakleaf. Very good quarterback, Walter Simmons, a 3-star. I believe I was looking at this recently. I think he's committed somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure. I might be wrong on that. But I also saw they picked up a transfer from Jacksonville Lee over the offseason, Larry Smith, 3-star safety who's committed to Indiana. So they also picked up Colby Bates, a very good athlete from Jacksonville Lee as well. So Oakleaf seems to be that team that's been picking up a couple players from those local schools and could be in the discussion for the top team in Northeast Florida, along with a fellow 8A team that's in their district, Barch and Trail, who had a 3-star quarterback transfer from Benjamin all the way up to Bartram. And those two teams will probably have the best two quarterbacks in Northeast Florida, and they'll be in the same district together.
Yeah, it's got to be hard. We were talking before the show, Hunter, about, just even, with coronavirus going on, and during a normal off season, to keep up with transfers and know what rosters are going to look like. But now, unless you are entrenched within a particular school, it becomes very difficult to break down entire districts and leagues. I mean, it truly does. And again, God bless you in 8A because the schools are so big.
And not to mention, like, one thing I always notice with 8A, every time I try to pick those playoffs, I usually get at best 30% success rate, just because all those teams, they're so close together, so balanced, and my playoff brackets usually get blown up within the first week just because they're all so close together. No matter who I picked, I'm going to end up losing.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And, I think the thing that's going to be really, really interesting this year is, and again, something we discussed before the show, is the point system. If any portion of this season has to be pushed back, or teams have to cancel games, or they have to delay the start of the season, I do not see how the FHSAA point system could remain relevant. I don't. Because there's already enough issues with it, with a 10-game schedule, and then there's a minimum number of games you have to play. There will be teams in this state that hit the 10-game mark. There will be teams in this state, based on, I think, with the writing on the walls, that will maybe play 6 or 7. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And I think 8A in particular, because, 8A is always unique in this state because it really does change from year to year in terms of powerhouses. I mean, you have your powerhouses, but there's always 2, 3, or 4 teams that creep into the mix. So it's definitely going to be an interesting watch in 8A.
For sure. And I'm thinking odds are if that we're having this show with the intention that we'll have a season. At least that's the approach that we're having to just take, because there's really no other way. Because when you go into like preparation, like doing these preseason stuff and all that, you just have to go with the flow and say, okay, we're going to treat everything as if there will be a season. If something changes, we change with it. But obviously, when it comes, like you said, the point system, I could definitely see a possibility they might have to waive that minimum game requirement just because out of necessity.
Yeah, no doubt. And even if they have to, even if they need to go back to the old system, if only for just 1 year, where, the district runner-up, it goes in. I mean, it'll be, look, pro sports, and I suspect college sports will have to make some adjustments as well, are all making adjustments. The National Hockey League, a 24-game or 24-team playoff schedule. The NBA finishing up 8 games. MLS, a World Cup-style tournament. You see what NASCAR is doing. Who knows what's going to happen with baseball? But I suspect that when you look at high school football, something's going to have to be done. I'd be shocked if there were a point system this year in Florida for the high school football for the FHSAA.
The one thing I always see is like, I think with the point system, the thing I always like about it is the fact that it really does reward stronger districts. And in fact, one of the districts I think we'll talk about when we get to Central Florida with Merritt Island, Rockledge, Uigali, right, and Palm Bay. Like, that district, it might be the best district in that entire region. I'm very sure the third team in that district could be better than some district winners. That's the biggest thing. Like, if they went back to the runner-up system, there's going to be teams in that district are going to get screwed big time.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt.
In terms of the other teams in AA North, obviously in that same district, Sandalwood, who has a lot of talent, but they've really never proven themselves to being able to not only make it to the playoffs on a regular basis, but to do anything with it, despite that most of the time they're probably on paper the best team, well, at least the best public in Duval County. And then you got Mandarin, who's just 2 years removed from a state title, but of course, without Carson Beck, probably going to drop off. In that same area, you also got a team like DeLand or Flyer Palm Coast that might be worth watching. But that's pretty much the majority of the 8A teams in the North Florida. By the time you start going past those two or three districts, you're already in Central Florida.
Yeah. Admittedly, there's not a lot I can bring to the table when it comes to 8A, simply because here in Brevard County we don't have an 8A team. We've got 2 7A teams in Melbourne and Vieira. But yeah, I just for me, my biggest contact with 8A was a couple of years ago. I believe with your school, Columbia, when Vieira came up in the playoffs and played them. I apologize, but there's just not a lot I can bring to the table when it comes to 8A.
Well, we were 7A then.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I guess with Central Florida, the 8A teams there, obviously keep an eye on Popka, Dr. Phillips, Osceola, even like a Stanford Seminole. Like, those are type of teams that are very good each year. The one thing I do see in 8A that I could possibly see, as long as, of course, us having a season, Treasure Coast and Vero Beach. That game has been getting very competitive the last few years. Last year, I believe that game went into overtime during the regular season, and they're getting very competitive. I keep hearing word on the street that Vero might be down this year. I could see Treasure Coast taking that district and also, in the process, ending Vero Beach's regular season win streak, which I believe is up to about 70 games right now.
Well, ironically, yeah, right. That's exactly right. That win streak is still very much intact. Look, I would caution everybody when it comes to the Vero Beach Indians. Coach Lenny Jankowski is one of the best head coaches in the state. And I think that a lot of people believe that this is going to be a team that's going to be down this year for one reason and one reason only, and that's because Ryan Jankowski, his son, isn't going to be the quarterback this year. But I would also tell you to keep your eye on a young man that he's got that was a junior last year. He's a good signal caller. Mason Sweat is going to line up and take Jankowski's place. He's 6 foot, about 180 pounds. He'll be a senior this year. So I would keep eyes on him. And really, when you talk about Coach Lenny Jankowski and you look at this streak, you know, you go back 5 years ago when people thought, or 4 years ago when people thought that Vero Beach program was going to be down 3 years ago, and then Jankowski's son took over under center. So I think it becomes more of a hope than a reality when it comes to Vero Beach. Now, look, Treasure Coast, yeah, I mean, Fort Pierce Central, always going to give them a battle down that way as well. I know they've begun to play Vieira as well in a game called the Adidas Bowl. That was a really good football game last year. Vieira had opportunities in that one to end their home winning streak. But for Vero, I think the focus becomes, when are the Indians going to reach the state championship? You know, I mean, that's the monkey on the back of Coach Lenny Jankowski at the moment.
There ain't the only team in the state that's got that monkey on their back, I can tell you that much.
Right.
Also, interesting enough, they also play Venice this year, so technically they have 2 games on there you can call the V Bowl, the Vieira and Venice.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, Venice, I had an opportunity to see Venice play last year at Venice. Coco went over. And look, I'm going to tell you, Venice put it on Coco pretty good. I was shocked with that passing attack of Venice's, and that's another team, that atmosphere, you know, with the big jumbotron in the end zone. Same as, it's no different than Vero Beach, and two really good schools with 2 really proud traditions. Venice, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a heck of a game.
In terms of 8A, also with Central Florida, the one team that I haven't heard much about them, but I don't think you can count them out just because of how good of a program they've been for the past 15, 20 years, is Plant. They were obviously had a rough year last year. The question is, can they rebound this year?
Yeah, Plant's always been a thorn in the side here in Brevard County. But, you know, I think aside from last year, and I'm not sure, you know, look, that Tampa Bay Tech team last year was a really good football team last year. So, but for Plant, you know, one thing's for sure, they know how to win. Their history will tell you they know how to win in the playoffs, too. I mean, you go back and look at the last 5 or 6 years, I think Plant is good for at least 2 wins in the postseason in each of the last 5 out of the last 6 years. So I would never count Plant out, and they may have had a down year last year, but they'll be back and ready to go this year.
I agree with that. I could definitely see them having a bounce back year this year. And South,
yeah, no doubt. Yep.
In South Florida, obviously, teams to watch in 8A. Columbus, the defending 8A state champions, they finally got over the hump. Deerfield Beach probably be very talented again this year. They're still looking to get over the hump. South Dade will be a pretty good one, probably. But the team in 8A that I keep really want to keep an eye on, that I've heard good things about, and just looking on their roster, they should be loaded this year, is Miami Palmetto. Very loaded roster coming to this year. That 2021 class for Palmetto is very good. I could realistically see them coming out of the 8A South.
Yeah, look, when you're talking about these Miami schools and you're talking about the coaching staff and I mean, you know, you take a look at this particular coaching staff here. Mike Manasco, great coach. I mean, they do some neat things there. Last season, they were 10-2 in the playoffs. I think, I'm not sure, but I think they lost to Western last year, and I think that was a tough 3 or 4 point game. But look, I mean,